Hi, good evening again, and thank you for your patience, and good to see you all. So, it is an honor to be hosting this special evening and colloquium tonight with philosopher Isaïe Nzeyimana, who is here from Rwanda, and anthropologist Natacha Nsabimana, who is here from Chicago, and artist Christian Nyampeta, who is here from New York. Hello. So the colloquium tonight is organized in collaboration with Sculpture Center on the occasion of Christian Nyampeta's show École du Soir, or Evening Academy, which is on view at Sculpture Center through December 16. On behalf of e-flux, I would like to welcome our guests, bienvenue. And I would also like to welcome curator Sohrab Mohebi, who will say a few words before we start. Thank you all for coming.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody for your patience. I just wanted to and Will and everybody for hosting. It's a great privilege to be here, and we thought we would, it would be a great location for this kind of conversation, given e-flux dedication to, let's say, a certain kind of dissemination of critical discourse that is really, I think, imperative at this moment. And what I also really wanted to just say how grateful I am for having this opportunity to bring these three incredible people together. We were really nervous if various kind of boundaries and borders will let this happen or not, and it did happen, so that's really great. So I'm really grateful for Isaïe and Natacha to be here, and also wanted to say Christian and I have been really we've been in conversation for since 2013 when I went to Utrecht to see his show, and I just wanted to say that that's kind of problematic that he's introducing in this kind of like project of translation that I think will eventually, hopefully, lead to certain kind of politics of transfiguration is something that we're really happy to host here in New York. So I think it's just better to kind of get going with this amazing presentation. Hopefully, we'll have a discussion afterwards. Thank you.
Hello, good evening, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here, and it's daunting, as you can imagine, because I tend to say that ideally I should be seated there and facing here, but now it's time to face you and then try and make sense of this moment. I'm very grateful for Sohrab for extending the invitation to work with Sculpture Center. I'm grateful to Kyle, and I'm grateful to every member of the team at Sculpture Center. Of course, I'm very grateful for the e-flux team, Amal, Brian, and everyone else here, and Will. I am extremely grateful to Natacha for being present, and I'm very grateful to Isaïe, with whom, again, none of this evening will be possible. So, as Sohrab and Amal said, my name is Christian Nyampeta. I am indeed an artist, and I would like to introduce this evening first by taking time to put into perspectives the work of Isaïe Nzeyimana, particularly because it exists mostly in French and Kinyarwanda, and I would like to do so by inscribing it in a dialogue that clearly pre-exists this moment. And then from there, we'll watch a series of visual works, which I'll introduce as best as I can. And then from there, we have a dialogue. So unlike how it's announced, how it's going to unfold, we realize that actually a more loose and more, loose is not the right term, but a more mobile structure makes sense, and it's more fitting for essentially how we feel and for the occasion, I believe. So in the background, as I speak, or as both of us speak, there is what I call a modular playlist, which is composed of works, some of which are my own. Right now we're watching Mugabo, a film by a colleague, a wonderful filmmaker. She lives in Berlin, Amelia Umuhire. And essentially, these are images. Of course, they're works, monumental works on their own right. But for the purposes of this evening, they really function as backgrounds. Without doing injustice to them, of course, but sometimes they will become foregrounds, and some other time they will recede again in the background. And so, yeah, you're free to pay attention to them, or to myself, or to everyone else around you. But first, I would like to take maybe 10 minutes or so and introduce the work of Isaïe Nzeyimana as a person also, in the terms in which I myself have encountered them. So I have entitled this session, this introduction, Footnotes on How to Live Together, Living with Questions in Rwanda and Beyond, Then and Now. So at the beginning of 2012, I was invited by my then research supervisor, French-American philosopher Jean-Paul Martineau, to organize a public forum at Goldsmiths, University of London. This forum took place on the 5th of May that same year at the Richard Hogarth building on the New Cross campus. It was the 5th Visual Cultures Public Forum, and it explored the question of how to live together by drawing attention and outlining the implied consensus from the perspectives of the writings of Roland Barthes, the French literary critic, and the philosopher Jacques Derrida. Alongside Martineau and myself, the other participants were philosopher Isaïe Nzeyimana and Andy Stafford, a British theorist at the University of Leeds at the time. But because of financial and logistical limitations and immigration issues relating to traveling from Rwanda to the United Kingdom, Nzeyimana made his contribution to the public forum through a video interview. This was made possible by Martineau, who, in the months prior to the forum, had been in Rwanda working on his volume After Rwanda, in Search of a New Ethics, which was published in 2013. Martineau had given me the opportunity to address a question to Nzeyimana, and my question was to reflect on the question Barthes himself had posed, how to live together. The resulting video was 15 minutes in duration, recorded by Martineau at Nzeyimana's home in Butare, in sound and in color, on a readily available digital video camera mounted on a tripod. Nzeyimana's face and upper body occupied most of the frame, and Martineau's voice was only audible as he posed the questions.
Tu l'as déjà branché?
Ouais.
D'accord, bien. Je m'appelle Nzeyimana Isaïe. Je suis rwandais, comme vous constatez ici.
Ouais.
Je suis né à Butare. Butare, c'est une des villes du Rwanda, qui était connue comme la deuxième ville du pays. Je suis né tout près de la frontière du Rwanda au Burundi en 1964. Bien, j'ai fait mes études primaires là, dans le coin. Dans mon village, les écoles secondaires c'était double. Je les ai fait d'abord ici à Butare, dans un groupe scolaire. Après, je les ai terminés à Kabgaï, c'était dans un petit séminaire. Oui, j'enchaîne comme ça d'une manière directe. C'est qu'après, je voudrais être prêtre et juste un sentiment positif envers la vie religieuse. Je me suis engagé dans une congrégation religieuse appelée les Pères Palotins. Et c'est de cette façon que je suis allé au grand séminaire. Ils m'ont envoyé un grand séminaire, mais d'abord j'ai fait tout le circuit de formation religieuse, noviciat, postulat, noviciat. Après, je suis allé au grand séminaire. Le grand séminaire, c'était à Yaoundé, au Cameroun.
Ah oui.
C'était en 1990. Bien, là, j'ai fait 3 ans de philosophie. Et après, ça a tourné autrement. Je n'ai pas voulu continuer à la vocation de prêtrise. J'ai changé d'avis, je me suis engagé à l'université de Yaoundé. À l'époque, ça s'appelait Yaoundé. Hein?
Qu'est-ce qui a provoqué ce changement?
Le changement, il y a le côté, je sais pas quoi.
Would like to end there, and I think there is, I believe, only one cut in the film, and the rest is an unedited conversation. And ever since editing Martinon's footage, watching the resulting video, subtitling and transcribing its dialogue for the purposes of the screening at the public forum, and later also for my own studies, I have engaged in conversations with Rwandan and Congolese philosophers at their homes, universities, and cultural institutions. Some of our conversations have focused on the subject of rhythm and its role on subjecthood, and belonging. And so my films, Comment vivre ensemble, Words After the World, and A Flower Garden of All Kinds of Loveliness Without Sorrow, bring together extracts and fictions from these dialogues, whereby rhythm is a metaphor for hospitality, class, ethnicity, and race. I think it's a regulating device consisting of subjective and objective criteria. In this way, rhythm can give one insight into how to live together with those with whom we do not share a similar outlook on how to structure one's own private and public spaces, times, and memories, and the formation of one's own subject. Philosophers in Rwanda often hold important positions in education as well as other infrastructures for the formation of the subject, and are also involved in standardizing processes in the society. So Isaïe Nzeyimana is the founding member of the former Nile Source Polytechnic of Applied Arts in Butare. And his writings are used as the basis of textbooks in universities nationally. And I can cite a few other artists, philosophers, but I will also cite Rosemary Mukarutabana, who's a parliamentarian, a linguist, a mythologist, and a translator. We might return to that. So like the work of these individual African colleagues, to paraphrase the Gabonese philosopher Grégoire Biogo, their writing seems to highlight what the world is ceasing to be without the world yet being aware of it ending. Their thinking fights against the permanent degradation of life and of living together, but also against the threat to life caused by the disappearance of our relation to each other and the habitable environments on the planet. This philosophy revives what would otherwise be lost, and it carries a meaning and a promise which compel us to rethink life. And so the themes explored by these philosophers include authenticity, development, education, generosity, history, testimony, and witnessing. Their references and interests reflect the influences acquired through their education in Rwanda, and as exemplified by Nzeyimana just now, in Cameroon, in Kinshasa, in Yaoundé, but also in Bamberg, Rome, and elsewhere. And so the thinking is versed in what one can call Western philosophical idioms, while cultivating their own thematics and treatises that address the local urgencies which equally respond to worldly event from the perspective of their own localities. And so the question of how to live together is indeed a shared concern. in the sense that these philosophical works tend to imply, but also to contest a consensus by outlining the meaning of this consensus, not only in relation to these Western contexts, but also in regard to the extreme situation that led to and followed the genocide against the Tutsi that took place in Rwanda in 1994. At the same time, a number of theoretical and practical aspects of their life and work, such as the adherence to Christianity and intellectual references to controversial figures such as Friedrich Hegel, necessitates an excursus in outlining the intellectual histories, accounting for their philosophical formation, and how it contextualizes Nzeyimana's own understanding of memory, economy, and education, once again in relation to the question of how to live together. But of course, such an excursus will be more or less impossible to do in a moment of an introduction like this. So I've tried to write about it elsewhere. Also, thanks to the e-flux team, there's a text that appeared in April of this year in issue 99 of the e-flux journal. So, but even today, so essentially what I'm trying to do there in that text is to suggest that the history of modern ideas or philosophy in Rwanda is intertwined with the histories of seminaries, meaning Christian institutions. So even today, only the Grand Séminaire Philosophicum de Kabgayi offers philosophical education. And so in the Séminaire's journal called Aéropage, Rwandan philosopher and priest Pierre Célestin Ngoboka outlines how the attribute of thinking life becomes a questioning about one's own being, because the human experiences need to answer to the problem of her or his identification to the world. Here follows a bit of a technical frame, just to give a word to someone else. From this emerges a whole set of questions. The first is normally a genetic order. Where do I come from? The second is of eschatological order. Where do I go? This questioning never leaves behind the following of ethical character, with what means, what to do in order to get there. Then follows a question that is fundamentally metaphysical. Why my being instead of my non-being? Which is followed by the most complex of all, and of a type that is specifically anthropological. Who is really this human that I am? I'm very happy to have Natacha here, because she's an anthropologist, so she might be able to qualify or dismiss. And in fact, I'm myself not really a philosopher. As I said, I'm just an artist, and so I'm not entirely convinced by the authority of such a classification. But what I do know is that I became absorbed in the last question in August 2013 when I met Isaïe for the first time. It was also the first time I had been to Rwanda since relocating to the Netherlands in 1999. The visit was made possible by a travel budget from Casco, an institution based in Utrecht that Sorab mentioned earlier. And it was in connection with the first exhibition of this inquiry that started a few years back, which in fact also was tied to a doctoral thesis, which I'm very happy to say that I just submitted. And so I had traveled from Amsterdam to Nairobi, and where I stayed with colleagues in order to reflect on, in fact, the question of the return, by attempting to read and to learn more about the condition of a specific text by a Kenyan novelist called Ali Mazuri, who had written a text called The Trial of Christopher Kigbo. In any case, I traveled by road to Kigali and via Kampala. And once I visited my family and old friends, I then journeyed from Kigali by Horizon, which is a privately operated bus company, and I met Nzeyimana at a bus stop outside of Butare in a city now actually called Huye. Nzeyimana then drove me around in a white Toyota Land Cruiser, characteristic of the fleets of the UN missions the jeep was decommissioned from. Nzeyimana had bought the Rand cruise, in fact, and imported it from Goma, the Congo. So Butare, as Isaïe introduced, is a historic town, famous for its national university, but also is a town known to be close proximity to Nyanza, where the ancient Rwanda kingdom was seated. And this proximity accounts for the settlement of the earliest churches and monasteries by the White Fathers, and for the still existing historical buildings dating from the arrival of the Germans in 1901 until the Rwandan independence from the Belgian rule in 1959. I might be wrong about the dates. Finally, Butare is also known for its national park and indeed, again, for neighboring Burundi. Anyway, as I arrived, the day was coming to an end, and we passed by the regional health center to meet Emerance, Nzeyimana's spouse and medical officer. We continued the tour together with Emerance, and we settled for a meal. I was lodged at Ibis Hotel, a colonial-era establishment with memorable architecture, resembling to me that of a monastery and a country post office. We sat in a garden of the hotel underneath the guava tree for the remainder of the evening, and we discussed the question of how to live together in its various guises. I should say that during the 15 years since I had moved away, my Kinyarwanda had severely deteriorated. And yet, unlike the family members, the new and old friends and colleagues I had met during this first visit thus far, I perceived that Nzeyimana was acutely accommodating by moving between languages. So my other interlocutors acted like, of course I'm exaggerating a bit for the purposes of sketching the frame, but I felt that my interlocutors acted like the security agents at the ports of entry who were intent on matching my last name to their preconceived notion of what they thought my identity should be. They insisted on correction and interpolation. Do you remember this building? You do not know where this was before, as we just saw in a film of Omohire. The object of such interpolation, which even registered in our mutual salutations and valedictions, was an inadvertent exercise of power. To invoke Roland Barthes again, who I had the pleasure and the misfortune of studying for the doctoral dissertation. What is at play here is the maintenance of self-enforcing powers, in plural, like a legion of demons, as he says. In those same studies, I tried to discuss how this plurality of power extends in social space and is symmetrically perpetual in historical time. And within such encounters, I could see how this power derives its endurance and ubiquity from language, which again, for Barthes, is a parasite of a trans-social organism linked to the whole of human history and not only to a political historical history. And so I felt that the desired or unintended aim was to bring me back, or to bring back the unchanged conversant they had known or heard of, and to enforce a familiar cohesion. So I was deeply touched, of course. It's very moving to be received and included. In fact, it feels as though I really never left. I was very much at home. But at the same time, my mode of comprehension and expression, in Kinyarwanda at least, had shifted from fluent speech to reverberation and echolocation. I was lingering on words, so in order to grasp, again, this is an expensive term, their paleonymic meaning, as again Jacques Derrida we started off with, and another philosopher here, Nahum Dimitri Chandler, would say, to such an extent that I would lose the thread of the conversation. So by focusing on a single phrase or word, I relapsed into the realm of reflection and translation. a mode that proceeds by absence instead of conversation, which demands presence. Of course, these are the points of contention or limits addressed elsewhere by others. And essentially, it's a way of the narration or a story, or the medium or means by which to narrate the said story, and the presence or absence of the body that narrates such a story. But most importantly for me, as I felt then, the linguistic fluency of such narration meant civility, historicity, association, acquiescence, and the recognition of shared values. Instead, I was putting into question the obviousness of such bond by dint of my own incomprehension of Kinyarwanda, which is my mother tongue. In a way, I had become, you can say, idiosyncratic. So I was interested in understanding a vocabulary that I had never known while growing up. So my distance from the sphere of ideas of Rwanda had engendered in me a new discursive inquiry characterized by an intense interior proximity with Rwanda, with Kinyarwanda, the language. So paradoxically, it was intense because it was interior. And so during my visit, every encounter solicited a philological excursion. So I would say, I now see that Muramuche, which is good night, means may you survive. And so this development was captured beautifully by Nzeyimana's remark when he observed that, I'm hesitant to say this, I had been pregnant with myself. And so I felt that being pregnant is precisely an act with oneself, is an act of rebirth and reconstitution. And so this is how, from this condition, I became interested in a new syntax of living together. What is philosophy in Kinyarwanda? What is art in Kinyarwanda? What is rhythm in Kinyarwanda? So this idiorhythmic or idiosyncratic and translative dialogue became the very method of inquiry for the work that I've done between now and this, that moment I described. So that's a period that spans from 2013 and 2019. That's how I have organized conferences about rhythm, language, art, philosophy from these initial questions. And in fact, some, if not most of these conferences were co-organized with Nzeyimana, and others have featured recorded conversations we have held since. And so effectively, to finish off, this evening here at the lower east side of New York at e-flux is inscribed in this ongoing movement of thinking and feeling, memory, education, and economy in the company of colleagues here again, Sculpture Center, e-flux, Natacha, and practitioners, in fact, from Rwanda and beyond, and far beyond. And so in that spirit, I would like to end here and then propose to continue with viewing of a flower garden of all kinds of loveliness without sorrow, which is a title for, oh, it's not really, let's call it a title for a work that is ongoing, and I consider it again a recording rather than a film, which derives from a collaborative work with Isaïe Nzeyimana, in which essentially what we call a postcard method, so that like small fragments of postcards, which we make by driving around again in Nzeyimana's white Toyota I described, across Rwanda, visiting artists and philosophers and staging recorded conversations with our hosts on themes of, again, translation, memory, education. And so in this case, some of our hosts included artist Epa Binamungu, philosopher Fabien Hagenimana, Rosemary Mukaru Tawana, again, lyricist Sophie Nzayisenga, sculptor Jean-Baptiste Sebukangaga, artist Krista Wase, and architect Marie-Noël Akingeneye Uwera. The recording is about 27 minutes, and following that, we will have a dialogue. And during the dialogue, you're very much encouraged to interject, and it's open. So maybe we can dim the lights and then watch the recordings as a way of framing the evening and of loosening, or I guess of gaining a certain mobility, not only in how the recordings are made, but also in what they make thinkable, again, in relation to the question of aesthetics, ethics, and practice, which you can maybe loosely call politics. So yeah, thank you very much. That was my bit.
Donc, c'est pas des femmes, c'est pas des... Donc, vous cassez l'idée que c'est une prise de position du monde. Il installe une capitale ici, ou en tout cas un point de chute à l'est, à l'est, à l'ouest, au nord et au sud, et tu occupes tout. Voilà.
Nije mushyitsi je nitwa Nzeyimana Isaïe, nigisha muri Université i Butare, nigisha philosophie, ukaba nkunda ariko byerekeye ubuhanzi, umuco, niyo mpamvu twaje kubasura.
Byiza.
Oui, en fait, c'est dire qu'une école, c'est aussi de l'histoire. Ouais. Et cette école a une bonne histoire. Ouais. Bonne histoire, l'histoire, c'est toujours de l'inachevé.
L'inachevé, oui.
Qu'est-ce qui est inachevé ici? Et qu'est-ce qu'on pourrait, comme vous faites partie de la direction de l'école, qu'est-ce qui pourrait être un projet
d'avenir?
De devenir.
Malheureusement, je suis vieux.
Non, excluons le côté vieux.
J'ai l'âge avancé, mais si ce n'était pas avancé,
si vous aviez
j'aurais continué d'évoluer dans l'art, spécialement dans mon art de sculpture et monumental.
Monumental, c'est dire quoi? Des monuments.
Faire un monument, des monuments. Des monuments, parce que les monuments, c'est une façon de perpétuer l'histoire.
Ah, c'est ça, c'est vrai. Je crois que les monuments ici, ça manque.
Ça manque, oui. À Kigali, on commence, mais ça, en général,
vraiment...
des grands monuments, ça manque.
On n'a pas vraiment de monuments ici. Ça, c'est une bonne remarque, en fait. Tukiri ku bagore umuntu yarebye ubuhanzi ku isi yose, abagore ntabwo ari benshi cyane, yenda hashobora kuba hari impamvu, ntabwo wazi imbere ikigereranyo muri domene zose, ariko no mu Rwanda ubuhanzi n'abagore cyangwa abakobwa cyangwa abategarugori biraza guterwa ko umuntu yabyita neza, byifashe bite? Abahanzi b'abagore,
iyo ugiye mu bugeni ntabwo barimo benshi, baba abagore abakobwa ntibarimo, n'iyo babijemo ni umwanya muto babikora bagahita basubira mu bindi. Biterwa n'uko sosiyete ibona umugore n'uko imufata. Iyo babonye wibanze ku bindi bintu mbese bigufasha bikubaka cyangwa bifungura isi yawe, bavuga ngo utaye umuryango, utaye abana, wibagiwe inshingano zawe. Rero ugasanga abakobwa ntibabijyamo kuko bafite izo nshingano. Noneho ikindi kintu harimo no gusuzugura abagore cyangwa abakobwa, bakavuga bati ya ntibabishobora, ntabwo ari ibyabo, iby'abagabo n'iby'abahungu ugasanga rero n'iyo nawe ubibonye uvuga uti biriya sinabishobora ntabwo ari ibyanjye rero bigatuma batajya mu guhanga uretse ko mu bukorikori ho hari benshi ariko iyo bije mu bugeni ntabwo barimo kuko hari ibintu byinshi bibananiza twanabivuga harimo nabyita ikintu cyitwa harassment kirimo sexual harassment harimo uko ni uguharabika uko babyita harimo gusuzugura ibihangano byabo kubigurisha ku mafaranga make ugasanga n'andi barayagabana abagurishije barayagabana hagati yabo bakamuha make urumva ibyo bica intege baramukinisha bakagira ngo ni igikinisho kiri aho kandi yaje gukora mbese bakagira ngo bakibagirwa icyamuzanye bo bakumva ni ukwishimisha kuri bo mbese urumva ibyo ni agasuzuguro n'ushaka kugufasha ntihabura akantu ari buzanemo ngo aguterete wenda cyangwa ashaka ukuntu
agire ngo uri umuntu uri aho ngaho
kuko nkijya mu bintu by'ubugeni buri gihe hari igihe bambwiraga ngo nguje kuturangaza nguje gukora iki kandi njye si byo byanzanye numva bakitwaza ibyo bintu ngo naje kubagomesha kandi umuntu ari we wiyobora ari we wihaye inshingano ze
ubukorikori barimo mu bugeni ni bake kubera impamvu zumvikana cyane
ubukorikori buriya harimo abagore benshi kandi iyo bari hamwe ntabwo ibintu nk'ibyo biba
Il y a quand même, je me rappelle qu'il y a des chants qui viennent de passer plus de 30 ans. Et quand je dis Dorignon, tout le monde sait très bien que...
Continuez un peu, c'est bon.
Dorignon, Dorikira zikiboneye umuvyeyi usumba abandi Maria nyina wa Jambo. Ça, je considère comme quand même un chant qui ne vieillit pas.
Le futur. Pour moi, c'est comme un rêve. Chaque jour, c'est un grand jour. Ce jour, je le vois comme une autre imagination qui n'est pas de ce monde. Parce que quand je me réveille, je vois ce que je dormais en pensant. Ce n'est pas le même que j'avais pensé. Il y a un autre événement qui s'est passé. C'est comme ça que je pense au futur. Au futur, c'est une chose qui change tout le temps. Comme je le pense, il y a une autre façon qui s'est produite que je ne peux pas moi-même modifier ou changer. C'est une chose que Dieu lui-même sait comment ça va passer. Une autre chose, comme j'ai l'habitude d'observer, surtout mon père, il a un bon caractère. Il s'en fiche du monde. Si les femmes s'en fichaient du monde, pensaient à leur avenir, à leur futur, à leur temps qu'il était donné, ils seront meilleurs. C'est pour cela que moi aussi, j'ai envie de dire aux femmes de ne pas se contenter de se prendre pour eux-mêmes. Rester à penser de eux-mêmes. C'est pour cela que je veux dire aux femmes, il faut penser à l'avenir, à leur propre bien. Si, par exemple, si tu deviens veuve, tu ne peux pas dire si je suis veuve, le monde va me courir sur la tête. Non, il faut penser que si tu es veuve, tu peux y arriver sans ton mari. Si tu n'es pas encore mariée, tu peux y arriver sans avoir un mari. Tu peux avoir ce que tu veux en étant une fille ou en étant une mère célibataire ou en étant veuve. C'est pour cela que je vais dire aux femmes, aient fières d'elles-mêmes, mais en pensant à leur avenir. Si tu t'accroches à ton passé seulement, tu n'y arriveras nulle part. C'est pour cela que je m'adresse surtout aux femmes de s'accrocher et d'avoir la force, ne pas avoir peur de son futur ou de l'avenir. C'est ça que je dois changer, la mentalité des hommes et des femmes qui croient que si tu n'as pas d'argent, si tu n'as pas d'avenir, le monde est fini. Non, c'est avancer à l'avant. C'est comme ça que c'est ce que je voudrais faire en aidant les hommes et les femmes pour avancer, pour voir le monde meilleur.
My name is Kubwimana Saidat. Ndi umunyarwandakazi wifuza ejo heza, wifuza kuzagera kure cyane hashoboka, and ndifuza ko ejo hanjye hazaza haba heza cyane. Actually nkunda ubuhanzi, nkunda kuririmba kuko ni ibintu bishobora gutuma umuntu amererwa neza, aruhuka. Because iyo wumvishe nk'indirimbo, hari indirimbo ziba zisekeje waba unaniwe ugahita wumva uraruhutse. Hari indirimbo ya kera cyane, ntabwo nibuka ngo ninde wayiririmbye, ariko iyo ndirimbo buri munsi nk'iyo ndushye mu mutwe numva nshaka kuruhuka, ndayumva nkumva ndameze neza. Indirimbo y'abatekamutwe bajya baririmba ngo bararwanye byacitse parabolize n'ubushwanyi, na 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 parabolize n'ubushwanyi. Iriya ndirimbo ni ukuri irasekeje, irashimishije, wumva umeze neza, wumva uruhutse. And ikindi kintu nkundira ubuhanzi ni uko ushobora gutanga message yawe mu buryo bworoshye. Like nk'umubyeyi arimo hano umwana we, nk'iyi ndirimbo ivuga ngo umwana wanjye ko witeguye, umutima uranangiye ugiye mu mujyi, ubwo wabyiyemeje ndakure kugende, ariko umbabarire untege amatwi nugerayo. Yarimo amubwira uburyo kinava mu cyaro agiye mu mujyi. Yari yamugira inama mu bwego ntajyeyo, arabyanga, ariko abinyuza muri iyi ndirimbo. Ndakekaho umwana we yarari yumvishe message y'umubyeyi we yamubwiye. Hari akandi kantu gakurikiraho ngo cyono gashokwera amatara ya tibiturirwa itaturo ya ukeke ko ari paradizo. Yarimo amubwira ntagashukwe n'ibyo abona, uri kumva. Arimo aramugira inama, nicyo gituma rero nkunda ibintu by'ubuhanzi cyane. Ikintu navuga cya nyuma nabwira urubyiruko rw'u Rwanda, dushyize hamwe twakora, kandi twakora ikintu kinini cyane, twakora ikintu kinini cyane tutigeze dutekereza. Si nka kera wenda ngo biratugora, ariko dushyizemo imbaraga, tukiga, tugashyiramo umwete, tukagira intego dushaka kugeraho, ni ukuri twazagera kure.
fait, tu m'as déjà présenté, hein, mais enfin, j'ai une façon de me présenter moi-même aussi. Et moi, je me présente comme Georges Kamanayo, qui est né ici au Rwanda en 1947, donc ça fait un bout de temps.
Je suis né au Rwanda en 1947 pendant la période coloniale belge. À ma naissance, mon père n'était pas là. C'est ma grand-mère qui m'a donné mon nom. Elle m'a appelé Kamanayo. J'étais le fils d'une mère rwandaise et d'un colon belge. J'existais et rien ne pouvait y changer. Je suis né comme un enfant illégitime de deux cultures, de deux couleurs. J'étais un fruit défendu. Personne ne pouvait savoir que j'étais le fils d'un blanc, mais tout le monde le savait, sauf moi et la famille de mon père. J'étais un secret public. L'homme blanc venait souvent nous rendre visite. Plus tard, ma mère m'a dit qui était cet homme. Ce colon belge qui habitait tout près de chez nous, j'ai compris que c'était mon père. Mon père avait dans notre région des mines de thym. Plusieurs membres de ma famille y travaillaient. Mon père était un industriel important au Rwanda. Il cultivait de la quinine, du café, des fleurs pour fabriquer des insecticides et il assemblait des vélos. Ma mère m'avait défendu d'aller le voir.
Tant qu'on est justement sur la question de la mémoire qui est assez préoccupante, et tant qu'on est aussi dans un contexte aussi singulier comme celui du Rwanda, est-ce qu'on peut dire que l'Afrique n'a qu'une mémoire ou a des mémoires? Immédiatement, lorsqu'on va de l'histoire de l'Afrique, tout de suite on va de la colonisation, d'une mémoire malade, etc. C'est vrai, c'est une partie de notre mémoire. En fait, on pourrait se demander si l'Afrique n'a qu'une seule mémoire ou l'Afrique a plutôt des mémoires parmi lesquelles justement elle peut puiser pour une autoprojection vers l'avenir comme ce général dont vous montriez. Oui. Quelles sont ces mémoires encore beaucoup plus positives qui pourraient aider l'Afrique à se propulser vers le futur?
Nakwibuka kera tukiri kumwe ko wambwiraga ngo sinkababare sinkajye nekereza ibibi.
Thanks again for still being here. It's a great pleasure to be here and to be sharing time in an evening with philosopher Isaïe Nzeyimana, but also, as you saw, with quite a number of other histories, timelines, and songs and realities from which, of course, life itself draws and is recorded. So, if you don't mind, the following part is a conversation between myself and Isaïe Nzeyimana and Natacha in order to tease out some of the major concerns in the oeuvre of Isaïe Nzeyimana, but also from our own works and collaborations, but also towards the future activities as well. So it's not only in looking back, it's also situating the activities in the present and then speculating on how these might unfold and perhaps also their relevance here, as in the present and in this specific locality. So I pass on the word, the microphone, or the space to Natacha. I should say that, as you might have noticed, the evening unfolds in a number of languages. That's just simply the legacies of history. And so I hope you're patient as we try to translate sometimes from French to English, from English to French, from Kinyarwanda to English, maybe Dutch, who knows. But it's really simply, that's the reality. And earlier we remarked that effectively what this is also, I guess, a playlist. You can lend an ear to whatever language you prefer. And so if you don't understand, that's okay, but maybe there's a way to be patient about it. Please, Natacha.
And I should add, Isaïe told us, and as the evening unfolds and the more wine you drink, you choose to listen to whatever language is easier and more pleasant to your ears. So absolutely, it's an experiment. Thank you for having us, Christian. I'm very excited about the projects that you have with Isaïe, and the films are beautiful, and using different mediums is really amazing, and this experiment in different languages is great because actually that's how we talk everywhere in Rwanda, in Burundi. It's just people move from Kinyarwanda to Swahili to French to English. So it's an experiment, but it's also in so many ways a normal experience for many. So I was tasked to ask, or at least to think about a book that Isaïe wrote, where he thinks Africa with Hegel. And I want to start, number one, actually, by asking what provoked the change from the religious studies to the philosophy studies. So, qu'est-ce qui a provoqué le changement? Parce que dans la vidéo qu'on a vue, ça s'arrête au moment où vous allez expliquer pourquoi vous avez changé des études religieuses à la philosophie. Donc, je vais commencer par cette question-là. Et puis après, on va entamer Hegel and Africa.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, friends. I apologize myself. My English is very, very bad. I prefer to speak in French for translation by Christian, I think, or you. Ça finit, je ne sais pas. Je ne sais pas. I don't know. Est-ce que c'est nous qui choisissons la vie ou c'est la vie qui nous choisit?
So he's saying, I don't know. Is it, do we choose life or does life choose us?
En fait, je crois que je n'ai pas choisi beaucoup de choses. Même pour commencer la philosophie, ce n'est pas moi qui l'ai choisi, mais après je l'ai accepté. Maintenant, je suis enseignant. Je n'avais pas choisi d'enseigner. En fait, je me pose constamment cette question. Est-ce que c'est nous qui choisissons ou on est choisi?
So, yeah, I don't know if I have chosen anything in my life. I have the impression that I have been chosen even by philosophy, but then I accepted it. So I am wondering if it's us who choose or if the conditions choose for us.
En fait, je dirais que en grec, il y a un terme qu'on appelle kairos. Kairos, c'est l'occasion, c'est le moment unique. Et je crois que la vie, c'est comme ça. On est toujours à la recherche des occasions. En fait, on est seulement attentif à la vie. Et je crois que, pour ce qui me concerne, j'ai seulement été attentif à la vie.
In Greek, there's a term called kairos, which is an occasion, an opportunity, a unique moment. And the only thing that I have done is to be attentive to life.
Et je pense que c'est ainsi, la vie, c'est une présence. C'est une attention, c'est une présence, c'est un éveil, ainsi de suite.
And in that way, I think that life is a presence, it's an attention, and that is how it has unfolded in my case.
Donc, je ne sais pas.
So, I don't know.
Merci. So part of why I want to ask this question of thinking Africa with Hegel is because I'm sure, as many of you know, I think how I understand, how I read part of what he says about Africa is that Africa is sort of incapable of abstraction and kind of trapped in immanence, and therefore in many ways outside of, or largely outside of the historical process with a big H. So you can correct me on this, but how then do you resolve this contradiction? So, je vais essayer de dire ça en français. En fait, je me demande si vous pouvez élaborer sur les raisons, comme vous l'écrivez dans votre livre, qui heurtent les gens quand on parle d'une réflexion de l'Afrique avec Hegel. Est-ce une mauvaise compréhension ou une mauvaise lecture de Hegel? Le problème étant que, d'après comment moi je lis Hegel, justement, il maintient que, and I should say that he wrote a PhD thesis on Hegel, so he's very much well versed in this topic. So Hegel, à mon avis, maintient que l'Afrique demeure dans la permanence de l'être, si j'ai bien compris. Et donc incapable de se penser ou de s'auto-penser. Comment donc penser l'Afrique avec Hegel dans ces conditions-là? Comment sortir de cette contradiction fondamentale dans sa pensée?
Merci beaucoup. Effectivement, j'ai fait ma thèse de doctorat sur Hegel. C'était une manière de lire l'Afrique à partir de Hegel. De cette manière, Hegel a été pour moi une méthode de penser l'Afrique. Can you translate?
So that's true. I've tried to think Africa with Hegel, but it's from Hegel in the sense that, for me, it is a method.
Effectivement, Hegel, dans ses cours, dans ses leçons sur l'histoire, leçon de philosophie de l'histoire, qu'on a traduit par la raison dans l'histoire, il dit expressément que certaines cultures ne sont pas égales à la raison. En fait, il a commencé par la partie la raison s'éveille en Orient, elle progresse en Occident, et à l'époque justement de Hegel, la raison était en Allemagne. Et les autres parties du monde étaient à la lisière, autrement dit, en marge de la raison.
So, when Hegel wrote I believe it's the spirit of history, he maintained that apart from reason that was located in Germany, most of the parts were still essentially underdeveloped in terms of having reason.
Et ce qui est bien, c'est que lorsqu'Hegel parle de la raison, c'est la liberté. L'histoire de l'humanité progresse vers la liberté. À son époque, il distinguait trois modes d'évolution. Chez les Orients, chez les Grecs, c'était la liberté pour un seul. À l'époque, c'est la liberté pour certains. En fait, il y a des degrés. La liberté pour un seul, c'est très monarque. La liberté pour certains, dans des sociétés aristocratiques. Et Hegel avait voulu justement que la liberté soit pour tous. La liberté d'un seul, de certains. Et l'avènement de l'histoire voudrait que la liberté soit la propriété de tous. Et sous ce point de vue, je crois qu'il s'accorde avec l'histoire des peuples.
So, in his reading of in Hegel, he wanted to distinguish between to understand reason as freedom, and so the classifications that he gave to those who were beyond or under reason yet had to do with how only a few within the society had reason, had freedom, and so that was the basis for his formulations of what is reason and how that corresponded to the parts of the world that had or not the reason. I believe he classified in a number of groups, sometimes 4 and some other times 6.
Ce qui m'a poussé à apprécier cette approche, c'est que Hegel justement inscrit les sociétés, inscrit les hommes sur cette dynamique de l'avènement de la liberté, pas pour un, pas pour certains, mais pour tous.
So what drove him to resort to Hegel as a method is because Hegel insisted on the possibility of freedom, not for one person or group, but for all.
Une autre dernier moment, justement, ce qui, par rapport justement à l'Afrique, Hegel j'aurais pris comme une méthode Et sa méthode, c'est une méthode qui est techniquement appelée dialectique, qui permet d'approcher les contradictions. Autrement dit, qui permet d'étudier la réalité en ses contradictions.
So, in the case of writing the book that Natacha talked about, which in fact we're trying to translate at Sculpture Center with the working group, the reason he was drawn to working with Hegel again as a method is because it allowed me, meaning I'm speaking in the first place, I'm becoming Isaïe now, is because it allowed me to write with or within contradictions. So within its, to think Africa in its unity and within its contradictions.
Je pense que ça va.
So that's it has a specific name, which is a technical term called dialectics.
This actually goes really well with my next question, because part of a huge, an overarching question in his book, and for many of us, in my own work, and I think Christian, is the problem of how to write history, and specifically Rwandan history, with different voices, the contradictions, etc. So part of what he actually diagnoses in his book is that history writing or historiography in Rwanda is always sort of tethered to the political pressures of the time, and that when the political project changes, the kinds of history that is written also changes, and that you have this constellation of contradictory propositions, etc. So he poses this question that I want him to elaborate on now, which is how to write history in serenity, I think. Donc je voudrais en fait que vous avez compris, vous répondez à cette question de comment écrire l'histoire pour la sérénité. Donc je voudrais que vous élaborez sur le terme de sérénité. Qu'est-ce que sérénité veut dire dans ces circonstances? Mais surtout, comment écrire cette histoire pour ne pas, sans réveiller ou réanimer des blessures encore très fraîches, ou des blessures très fraîches de cette histoire, des blessures ou reconnues publiquement, ou des blessures qui sont suppressed, if we can call it that. Donc comment écrire cette histoire avec sérénité, avec une mémoire qui contient encore des blessures très, très présentes, qui sont les conséquences de cette histoire écrite en contradiction.
Ça va. Yeah, merci beaucoup. En
fait, comment vivre avec cette histoire partielle?
Oui. En fait, je me demande si est-ce que l'homme vit de ce qu'il sera ou de ce qu'il a été. Est-ce que en fait nous avons une.
So I would like to. So in answering that, first I would like to ask if humanity lives with or from what one has been or what one will become.
Oui, la démarche consiste toujours à inscrire l'histoire sur une linéarité, une chronologie, le passé, le présent et le futur.
So the usual ways is to inscribe history within a chronology, within a linear timeline of the past, the present and the future.
Et dans ce livre, justement, je pose que l'homme vit beaucoup plus de ce qu'il a été, et c'est ce qu'il a été qui parvient à nourrir son présent. Et j'ai insisté parce que justement, ça ouvre à l'histoire. Ça va.
So in this book, I try to. This is another book, but in this book, I try to outline that, in fact, perhaps the humanity lives from what it has been, more so than what it will become, because that's what allows to nurture the present.
là, la mémoire d'un peuple, d'une personne, c'est vraiment sa grande richesse. Et c'est quelque chose qu'il faut prendre avec grande précaution parce que sans cette mémoire de son passé, l'homme est comme un peu désorienté.
So memory is a precious good that should be approached carefully because without memory, humanity is quite disoriented.
Et de là, justement, j'attaque la question de l'histoire. L'histoire est toujours accusée de partialité. Elle n'est jamais complète. Les historiens, je crois que c'est parmi, à côté des philosophes évidemment, des personnes les plus malheureuses.
So from there, I approached the question of history. And history is always accused of being partial. And in fact, historians are, besides the philosophers, the most miserable practitioners.
Et l'histoire sera toujours accusée de partialité. En fait, je les comprends parce que c'est difficile, en fait, c'est même impossible d'écrire la totalité de l'histoire de tout un peuple.
So history is always accused of partiality, and I understand because it's more or less impossible to write the totality of the history of a people.
Et dans mon livre, justement, il était question de comment comprendre cette partialité, comment l'accepter et à quelles conditions aussi.
And indeed, in my book, I try to work out how to understand that partiality, how to accept it, and how to live it.
J'ai changé une méthode de compréhension pour dire quoi? Pour dire que toute histoire est écrite par devoir de mémoire.
So I've changed the method and I approached the writing of history and understood it as always motivated by the duty of memory.
Si je deviens plus concret, l'histoire du Rwanda, qui doit être aussi l'histoire de tous des autres peuples, elle est écrite, en fait, je crois que c'est classique, période précoloniale, période coloniale, période post-coloniale. Et chacun de son moment est un devoir de légitimer un programme politique.
So if I may be a bit more concrete, drawing from the Rwandan history, which is in fact also the history of people anywhere else, is written with a duty, with a political project. So starting with the writing in or about pre-colonial times, colonial times, or post-colonial times, it tends to be written within a specific political project.
Et là, je crois que c'est vraiment, on ne peut pas empêcher la politique à faire une commande de l'histoire. On ne peut pas empêcher la politique d'écrire l'histoire. Seulement, je crois que je peux continuer. En fait, au lieu de discuter sur la totalité de l'histoire, on discute plutôt sur quel est le projet qui est voulu dans cette histoire. Parce que on écrit l'histoire pour un projet. On écrit l'histoire pour un projet et après, on va sélectionner les faits historiques qui légitiment son programme, son projet politique.
So it's very hard to prevent or to prohibit a politics to write a historical project. So in fact, every historical project every history is written with a political intent.
Et en acceptant cela, je pourrais plutôt retourner la question. Au lieu de discuter sur la partialité de l'histoire, la question de l'histoire revient à une question plutôt éthique. L'éthique du projet qui est véhiculé dans une politique. Est-ce que ce projet est humain ou déshumanisant, juste ou injuste?
So instead, it makes more sense to look for the object of that project. Is this project wanting to grow, essentially to save humanity or to dehumanize. And so instead of looking at only, or in this case in his specific book, at the partiality of history, he's instead focusing on the political project that writes that history. Is it for humanity or dehumanization?
Après, on retourne en arrière pour la sélection des faits qui cadrent avec le projet politique. La question qui est à ce niveau-là, c'est de sélectionner les faits, mais en laissant les autres à leur place. Parce qu'en fait, l'histoire est un ensemble de plusieurs événements. Lorsque j'ai déjà ciblé un projet, je reviens en arrière pour sélectionner les faits, les événements qui cadrent avec, qui légitiment, qui expliquent, qui mènent, qui conduit mon projet politique. Mais ce qui est demandé justement à l'historien, c'est de ne pas dénaturer les faits dont il n'a pas besoin actuellement, parce que qui sait, un autre pourra peut-être les utiliser.
So in this specific case, what he seeks is to work out again what the political project is and what the task of the historian is. And so what he finds is that the object of the historian is to attempt not to, he uses the term denaturalize the history or the accounts, but to legitimize the political project that writes that history, because at a certain moment another historian might come back to review that specific historical account.
Je pourrais ajouter que dénaturer les objets, c'est de deux manières, soit les détruire ou leur donner une interprétation peut-être fausse.
So to denaturalize an event or an object is either to destroy it or to give it a false interpretation.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, I understand. I was reminded as you were speaking, actually, of Michel Rolfe-Trouillot, who's an anthropologist, who wrote this book called Silencing the Past, about basically the Haitian Revolution and its reception or its silencing in history books in North America and France. And in it, I think he says exactly what you're saying, which is pastness. That he says that pastness is a condition. And it's exactly what you're saying, that history writing or historiography is in many ways conditioned by present circumstances. And you're inviting us to think more on that and to think about the ethics of what that means. But I have a related question and a follow-up question. You distinguish in that project of memory, you have different ways of thinking memory. So il y a la mémoire individuelle, la mémoire officielle, et la mémoire collective. So I want you to elaborate a little bit on the difference in the relationship between mémoire officielle et mémoire politique.
Merci beaucoup. La mémoire, comme je le disais, c'est une grande richesse qu'il faut approcher avec grande précaution.
As I was saying, memory is a rich resource which should be approached with a great care.
Je distinguais peut-être 4 ou 3 couches de mémoire. Il y a la mémoire individuelle, la mémoire collective, la mémoire nationale et la mémoire officielle.
So I distinguish between 3 or 4 layers of memory. There's the individual memory, There's the communitarian memory. There's a social
collective
memory. There is a social or national memory, and then there's also an official memory.
La mémoire individuelle, c'est que, en fait, les événements sont toujours communs, mais chacun a sa manière de vivre ces événements compte tenu de son histoire, compte tenu de ses aptitudes psychologiques, compte tenu de sa structure. Donc chacun a une manière qui est spécifique de vivre des événements.
So, concerning the individual memory, it's that it's all common, but each one has a way of living and experiencing differently the same event.
Pour ce qui est de la mémoire collective, les personnes qui partagent une identité, un groupe, les gens qui partagent une identité, qui appartiennent à un même groupe, dans les sociétés anciennes, on parlait de clans, d'ethnies, de groupes, de familles, ils ont quand même une couche de mémoire qu'ils partagent. Ils ont des éléments de mémoire qu'ils partagent par le seul fait qu'ils appartiennent à ce groupe.
Concerning the collective memory, those who belong to the same group or collective or community have a way of having experiences of the same memory by dint of belonging to that same collective category.
La mémoire nationale, c'est au niveau justement au niveau grand, les personnes qui partagent une nation, qui vivent dans une même nation, ont aussi des choses qu'ils partagent absolument, des éléments historiques qu'ils acceptent absolument comme étant communs.
And concerning the national layer of memory, those who live in the same nation or country have a way of understanding a sharedness of the same memory that they accept as fundamental to the belonging of that same nation.
La mémoire officielle, celle-là, elle est la plus grave parce que, en fait, tout est politique et mandat.
So the official memory, that's the most difficult one, because every political project, every politics, it's a mandate.
Pour cela, la mémoire officielle, c'est la façon décider politiquement de voir les choses. La politique décide, la politique décide une manière d'appréhender l'histoire, une manière d'appréhender les mémoires. C'est la mémoire décidée politiquement pour un projet aussi politique.
So it is a difficult one because the official memory is a political memory that is decided for a specific political project. So it's apprehended, or it should be apprehended, it should be understood in its political terms.
Bien, parfois alors, ces différentes couches de mémoire peuvent entrer en contradiction. Si on a de la chance, ça pourrait aller en harmonie, mais souvent, ça peut aller en contradiction.
So sometimes it so happens that all these layers, in this case 4, are contradictory. If one is lucky, they are not. They are in harmony or they agree with each other. But it could very well be that they are opposed and contradictory to each other.
Et alors, à ce niveau, comment doit-on approcher ces différentes mémoires qui sont en contradiction et qui pourtant doivent vivre ensemble? Parce qu'en fait, on est obligé d'être ensemble. Comment gérer ces différentes couches de mémoire une fois qu'elles sont en contradiction?
So, when that happens and when they're in contradiction, what to do in order to allow them to live together? Because somehow these 4 layers, even though they are contradictory, they might all be true, and therefore they might somehow have to cohabitate.
Je crois que c'est là alors où Hegel devient utile, parce que la dialectique hegelienne, c'est une dialectique qui procède par contradiction, par opposition.
So it's precisely there where Hegel's method becomes useful, because precisely it proceeds by contradictions, by oppositions.
Et la contradiction, c'est une méthode qui permet à ce que deux choses contradictoires, deux choses opposées puissent rester toujours ensemble.
And the contradiction is precisely so that two things which are opposed to each other can nevertheless stay together or live together.
Et en fait, je crois que gérer la mémoire, c'est être constamment en déplacement. Tantôt, se déplacer pour aller éprouver. En fait, c'est être capable d'éprouver toutes les mémoires. C'est être constamment en déplacement pour pouvoir éprouver chacune de ces mémoires.
So, in other words, to make sense of these need for the memories to live together is to undertake a movement. It's constantly displacing oneself in order to take note or to listen to these different layers of memory.
Je vais le dire de façon dialectique. Supposons que je suis avec mon ami Christian. Moi, je peux dire là où je suis, je me sens mal. Christian dira non, tu sens mal quoi. Je peux le dire, après tu vas traduire. Donc, je peux être là, je dis je me sens mal ou bien je me sens bien. Ça dépend. Christian, puisqu'il est de son côté, dira tu sens mal quoi. Je pense que la bonne manière de comprendre ce que je sens, c'est qu'il se déplace lui-même et qu'il vienne s'asseoir ici pour comprendre s'il ne sentira pas la même chose. C'est ce déplacement que je veux, en fait, que je dis.
So it could be that I would like to narrate this in this dialectical way. It could be that right now I would say, I'm not feeling good. And I would say, why? Why are you not feeling good? And I would refuse to accept that he's not feeling good. But instead, a better method is instead for us to trade places, for example, so that I sit there, so that I figure out how it could be, or that I try to feel from the position in which he is feeling bad.
Ça va. Merci.
C'est un très grand début. Merci. Actually, now I have a question to you, Christian, because in your introduction, you discussed this moment where language or Kinyarwanda, or you're interpolated into a scene, let's say, and it's a way of thinking language as doing things in the world, not as just a mere description. So I wonder if you can talk more about that and talk about language as something also that carries the potential for violence and, alienation. With Bart, if you want, but, your own reflections as well.
Yeah. At that, in my anecdotes, at that particular moment, it had to do partially with... So I would like to answer or address... I don't think I'll have an answer, but I would like to reflect on the question and maybe address it at the level of the anecdote I mentioned, and then maybe enter some other realm of reflection. So yeah, at that particular moment, it's not so much the immediate violence of language that I experienced, but it's maybe the temporality in which it happens. So it's this little space that either one gets or takes to reflect, in fact, on the beauty and the deliciousness of certain words and what they mean. So in other words, here you are, and then you're told, like you wake up in the morning and someone tells you, "Waramutse," and I'm like, oh my God, actually means, did you survive? And so, which means essentially good morning. And I felt that I really wanted to stay in that space and to reflect, oh my God, actually, I never thought about it in these terms. And but precisely because I was visiting within a very short amount of time, where the only currents, in fact, I had is to be present. So you cannot enter the realm of reflection, so you have to respond. And of course, also responding wasn't entirely on my own terms, because strangely, I guess in the process of acquiring some other languages, I might have lost the immediacy or the fluency, but it's not to say I didn't understand it. So I was extremely slow. It's as though you're playing in the film at a slow motion, and then, but that's not something that the realities at the time allowed. So with friends, or even at the border, or anywhere, in fact. It's not to do only with violence that is external. It's already within my own, subject or sociography. So it's the desire I had to relent the speed or the playback of language itself, which is an impossible task. And then, but I also think that indeed there is a there is a level of understanding or civility or subjectivity that comes with being able to speak as expected. And so an example is us being here right now, in how the transmissions of these very dialogue takes different precedences among different individuals. So the other day we went to order, I don't know, at the restaurant, and usually it's a very quick thing, but the fact that we have to translate, you already experience particular kinds of antagonisms to do with the fact that you just hesitate a second and you don't know if it should be this or that. And in terms of the order of the sequencing of essentially placing the order. And I felt that, in fact, partially that has to do with violence of language itself. So those are two anecdotes, and in my studies, I've come to understand that there is also a weight which is carried out through the words one chooses. So, I mean, you might have noticed that this is not really my thinking alone. It's something that maybe others have spoken more eloquently about than I can ever do. But there is a level of language as a certain kind of simulation of a war, in which we speak of winning an argument, losing an argument, or being up or down, etc. And so one of the reasons is simply, this can also be seen within social realities in which the modes of writing are, in fact, it's not only where modes of writing are supposedly oral instead of textual, but it becomes apparent, at least in some of my studies, in how language is described as this kind of trans-social, like a parasite of a trans-social organism, which accounts for why within environments where there is no textual writing, no name tags, no other exterior markers, one can recognize, I guess apart from the regalia one carries, one can recognize who is the king, who is the queen, who is the brothers, and so on. Partially, the hierarchy of those structures is inscribed in that specificity of language. So to sum it up, I don't really know the answer, but I'm particularly attracted to the possibility that indeed language might be violent, but that there is no outside of it. In other words, there's no way of not doing violence to myself as I greet the other, or in fact, as I greet you, so not so much the other. But then the inquiry I have is how to lessen that possibility of that violence. And again, it's not violence as in with guns and spares and nuclears, but it's a softer one that in fact can become that can manifest itself in physical forms. And so again, drawing from the examples from recent histories, recent 25 years history in Rwanda again, it's very well known how specific words were in fact utilized in order to demonize whole societal groups. I think that is harder to do without accepting the injury that the choice of certain words does to those who hear or receives them. That's my somehow unresolved thinking about the possibility of language as a violent form.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's what I had in mind. Language not as, or words not as just descriptors, but as also doing things in the world. Any question from the audience, by the way?
All right, thank you. So I have this first question, and I think maybe probably there are others, but of course we've been here for a while. I think just since we're here and it's the 25th anniversary of the events in Rwanda, we're here as survivors. I wonder if this is a philosophy of survival, and if it's this philosophy of not good life, but rather a philosophy of good enough. And we brought this kind of like in passing before, because I would like to hear about this, because Hegel speaks in the absolutes, and I feel we're speaking in just enough. And what does it mean to have a philosophy of just enough and philosophy of survival? I think it also relates to the question of the politics of survival, because Isaïe mentioned that there's a philosophy of history and philosophy and histories of politics. So I think that's kind of what I wanted to bring up.
I will try and translate that. So, en fait, il demande, donc c'est le 25e anniversaire du génocide contre les Tutsis au Rwanda. Et il a commencé un peu à vous parler de ça tout à l'heure, mais est-ce que c'est pensable ou est-ce qu'on pourrait imaginer une philosophie de survival? Une philosophie de survivre, une philosophie de la vie qui pourrait se résumer par les mots en anglais « just enough ». Donc, d'avoir survécu, c'est assez. Et la relation de cette philosophie avec une politique qui irait dans cette direction-là aussi, une politique de survivre.
Et aussi pour ajouter, il y a une... en fait, il y a un accent de l'absolu qui accentue les démarches entreprises de cette pensée de l'état de la mémoire. Et est-ce que c'est ça en fait? Comment penser cette est-ce que les pensées développées aujourd'hui, ou bien les quelques idées élaborées, ont-ils à voir avec l'élément historique dans lequel ils surgissent?
Mais merci. En fait, vivre, c'est un choix. C'est un choix et c'est une décision.
So, in fact, to live is a choice and it's a decision. Même si vous vous contrariez, even if you contradict yourself with earlier, because you say that vous disiez que même la philosophie vous a choisi.
Ouais. Et elle m'a choisi. C'est une bonne dialectique. Elle m'a choisi et je l'ai déjà fait. La vie, c'est ça en fait. On décide. C'est pas parce que la vie t'a choisi que d'un coup tu l'as subi. En fait, dans la décision de vivre, je ne sais pas s'il faut dire une résignation. Non, c'est pas une résignation en fait. C'est une liberté de décider que désormais j'agis ainsi. Et vivre, c'est vraiment décider en fait. Vivre, c'est décider. Et deuxièmement, c'est aller au-delà. C'est aller au-delà. C'est une décision d'aller au-delà. Il y a le passé, mais aussi il y a l'après. Lorsque je dis au-delà, c'est beyond. C'est ça. Tu comprends? Tu peux traduire?
So, even if earlier I say that indeed life chose me, it's not the case that somehow because life chose me, I'm subjected to it. That's how it happens. But I also then make a choice to undergo it. But within that, there's also a beyond. There's a way of passing beyond that point.
Puis pour aller au Rwanda, je crois que le Rwanda n'avait pas d'autre choix. On n'avait pas d'autre choix parce que, en fait, le génocide au Rwanda, c'est assez spécifique parce que ça a été commis par les Rwandais et contre les Rwandais. En fait, le génocide, c'est l'histoire du Rwanda même. C'est notre histoire. Ce n'est pas l'histoire de quelqu'un d'autre, c'est notre histoire. Et comme c'est notre histoire, c'est aussi notre devenir. En fait, ça nous appartient de la surmonter.
So, and then in that sense, in fact, the particularity of the Rwandan genocide is that it was committed by Rwandans against Rwandans. It's not the fact that it came from, or was committed by those outside of Rwanda, and therefore it is part and parcel of the history of Rwanda, and so it befalls upon the Rwandans inside to make sense of it.
Un autre élément peut-être qui est intéressant pour nous, c'est que ça a été aussi un projet politique. Cette décision de désormais vivre ensemble a été un projet politique, un mandat politique.
So that way of making sense of living beyond that point of the genocide has been also a political project.
Et ce projet politique n'est pas seulement pour le Rwanda, c'est aussi partagé par les communautés internationales, par les pays amis, par les populations amies. Donc c'est un projet national, mais qui est aussi partagé. Tout le long de toute la période jusqu'au 25e année justement, en fait, c'est un projet presque international. Parce qu'en fait, il faudrait peut-être revoir que le génocide, ça remet en question l'humanité même de l'homme. Et dans ce sens-là, le génocide, c'est un crime humanitaire. Quand je dis humanitaire, c'est pas au sens politique, c'est vraiment au sens existentiel. En fait, ça remet en question toutes les civilisations qu'on a eues jusqu'à présent. En fait, ça rappelle à l'homme qu'il est capable encore du mal.
So, even though, of course, it emerges from Rwanda, it is it's a global reality, and it's an international problem and crisis, not only for those around Rwanda, but also for the neighboring countries, the friends of those neighboring countries, but in fact the entire international communities. And in fact, what's revealing about it is that the Rwandan genocide, in fact, reminds humanity that it's still capable of evil, of atrocities, that it can actually still commit evil.
Ça va. Ah, Natacha travaille sur ça aussi. Tu peux ajouter?
Oh, oui. And Natacha has worked on the subject.
Any other question? Yes, please. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Christian and Isaïe and Natacha. I want to thank you, Isaïe. Je parle un peu en français, mais I'll ask in English. I want to thank you for pushing us beyond the trap of the post-colonial by suggesting that it is true that, you know, the 20th century had colonization, but that Africa has multiple memories, and that we should perhaps think about more than one singular memory of colonization as that which we're carrying forth. And then I want to ask about the economic understanding of freedom, which, in reference to Hegel, as you were speaking about before, how can we escape the trap of the post-colonial again within the economic understanding of freedom that imagines that no economic freedom exists before colonization, and that economic freedom happens only through colonization in Africa? Thank you.
Je vais essayer, vous pouvez encore, and Natacha, you can supplement. Moses Serubiri is the person who's asking the question, and pardon. Pardon. Donc c'est Moses Serubiri qui pose la question. Elle vous remercie de l'aide de penser au-delà du piège il appelle ça postcolonialisme, qui insiste que il y a une seule mémoire de l'Afrique. Donc votre suggestion, c'est d'essayer de voir les mémoires multiples du même peuple ou moment historique. Et aussi, il a une question, et ça se rapporte sur la liberté appréhendée comme un élément économique. Donc, comment penser la liberté économique au-delà des limites posées par la libération économique comme étant instituée par la colonisation, en fait.
En fait, je crois qu'il faudra d'abord guérir ou soigner les mémoires. Parce que, en fait, je crois que nous avons des peuples, j'aime le dire, c'est pas gentil, mais j'aime dire que nous avons des peuples qui sont malades, des ennemis fictifs. Fictif, c'est pour dire quoi? C'est pour dire que mon approche de la colonisation assez c'est pas quoi, spéciale. Je reviens à ce que Christian disait, les mots. Les mots disent les choses. Les mots signifient les choses. Et je crois qu'actuellement, je ne sais pas si c'est la colonisation ou bien si le monde fonctionne en rapport de force. Parce qu'en fait, quand on dit, je ne sais pas si je vais simplifier pour traduire. Donc, la colonisation, le mot colonisation, c'est vrai, a eu une histoire. Mais est-il toujours qu'il faut aller au-delà, au-delà? Pour cela, il faut transformer même le langage. Et actuellement, je ne pense pas que le mot a encore son sens, ou si ce qui se vit actuellement, c'est ce rapport de force. Quand on dit rapport de force, c'est rapport de force à la fois intellectuel, moral, de devoir se gouverner, technologique avec le monde, mais aussi militaire. En fait, le monde est maintenant économique aussi. Le monde fonctionne sous des rapports de force. Les exemples sont multiples. Regardez le pays comme l'Afrique du Sud. Regardez le pays comme le Brésil. Regardez le pays comme le Nigeria. Ce sont des pays qui émergent et parce que justement ont des rapports de force assez évolués. Regardez ce qui se passe en Chine. En fait, je crois que le monde actuel, et il faudrait l'appeler ainsi, c'est question de force, pas de force de musculation, de force morale, économique, politique, etc. Et justement, dans ce jeu de rapport de force, c'est cela qu'il faut chercher. Parce que lorsqu'on parle de la colonisation, c'est vrai, c'est un moment historique, mais actuellement, je crois que le monde fonctionne en rapport de force.
Yeah, so I'll try to simplify. The one way to approach this question is to realize that there is indeed maybe a certain exhaustion to the words we might use to describe the present realities. So I'm wondering if colonialism as a term still applies to the present as such as it was during the time it was formulated. And so what might make more sense, and it is of course true that it's an undeniable reality and the historical event as well. But one way to study it is no longer it necessitates a study of the language itself with which one use to describe it. And so I, meaning Isaïe, suggests that an approach will be to study a relation of forces. Sometimes this can perhaps be understood as power relations. That's a term that often circulates. But I think power and force are different things. So it's essentially a relation of forces in which one could study the dynamics that force one reality over another. So insisting on the tracing of that dynamics, of that relation of forces, might help instead to go beyond only to reach a specificity that is inscribed within the realities that would otherwise be generally understood as, for example, colonialism. Yeah, I mean, so now I stop being Isaïe. Yeah, and in fact yeah, so in fact, he's right. Well, I am right, I'm Isaïe again. Specifying that force is not simply a muscular reality or physical one only, but it's also economical, spiritual, social, educational perhaps, but also military. And so that's where it should be found and located. And yeah, but now I stop being Isaïe. Je ne suis plus Isaïe maintenant. So one thing to add and also to try and address your earlier question, and Sorab as well, because actually there's a certain link about them, is to think of the you can say the history of the present as marked in part or accentuated in part by a particular kind of, as it's described in the works addressed today by Nzeyimana, at least that's how I approach it, is indeed to see it from the particularity of its, of its afterness. So there's a certain afterlife that emerges in the wake of the specificity of the historical event from which this writing emerges. And so I think it's important to highlight indeed that those conditions and to see the, I'm hesitant to call it a universality about them, but the sharedness and the historicalness of that specificity, in the sense that not only it really happened, say, in a remotely located geographical area, but the fact that it happened within the same time frame, within the same historical period, in fact, suggests that it cannot only be described in geographic terms, but also when you displace that event and locate it on at the level of time, then it becomes clear that indeed there is there's a particular entry into the human that in fact is also a self-destructive one, in a way that makes an afterness that is at the same time not simply a disruption. It is a disjunction, but not a disruption. And so what that makes is that elements of the previousness continue altered or shifted, but others also come in place of it. And I think I would say that the writing and the thinking and the doing of particularly the work of Isaïe emerges in that context. I might be wrong, again, but that's how I read the texts and the works.
So part of what he ends up kind of like also spending time meditating on in his book and in his work is in this gesture to reconstitute a social fabric and a historical fabric that emerges recently from like radical rupture. He works with this term in Kinyarwanda that is ubuvandimwe, and literally it translates as coming from the same womb. So it evokes like a language of kinship. But currently, the thing that is like on everyone's word in Rwanda is this, political project of being Rwandan. So he comes up with, he gestures towards kinship as opposed to like nationhood or Rwandanness. So I want him to elaborate on that. So Isaïe, vous proposez le concept de ubuvandimwe pour vivre ensemble. Et c'est pas la même chose que Ndi Umunyarwanda. Parce que Ndi Umunyarwanda relie au pays, à la nation, et c'est un concept qui est imbibé de nationalisme. Tandis que ubuvandimwe, c'est kuvindimwe, c'est sortir du... ça évoque la parenté. Donc, est-ce que vous pouvez élaborer sur la différence entre les deux? Et pourquoi ubuvandimwe et pas Ndi Umunyarwanda?
Oui, Ndi Umunyarwanda, c'est... En fait, ça connote un nationalisme. Un nationalisme, mais si je disais plutôt une affirmation de l'identité de soi. Et l'identité, c'est pas mal en fait l'identité. L'identité, elle est mal lorsqu'elle est une fermeture sur soi. L'identité appelle la différence. L'identité appelle la différence, et dans ce sens-là, l'identité est aussi ouverture. Ouverture. Tu peux traduire?
My interest I have in using ubuvandimwe as opposed to Ndi Umunyarwanda is indeed to move away from the identitarian nationalism, and in fact, identity is in itself not so bad, except insofar as it is an enclosure to oneself. It can perhaps be good if it's an opening of differences.
Je crois qu'on peut prendre l'identité au sens Ndi Umunyarwanda, ça c'est beaucoup plus anthropologique. Ndi Umunyarwanda, ça pourrait se dire à chacun. Ndi Umunyamerika, Ndi Umufaransa. Mais cela ne veut pas dire que c'est une fermeture de soi, justement comme vous le disiez. C'est une identité ouverte, une identité réceptive. Je ne sais pas comment on va traduire. Très bien. D'accord, je crois. Je vais revenir à la différence. Ubuvandimwe, you can translate. Ubuvandimwe, étymologiquement, c'est kuva indimwe, naître ensemble.
To go back to the term ubuvandimwe, etymologically, is to be born from the same womb, so to be born together.
Et dans ce sens-là, ubuvandimwe, c'est aussi un fondement, j'allais dire politique, parce que ubuvandimwe est né en famille, mais ne reste pas seulement en famille, s'étend. Ubuvandimwe, c'est une extension, c'est une ouverture. Elle est née en famille, et elle s'étend à des groupes, et jusqu'à aller former toute une nation, de telle sorte qu'au Rwanda, chaque personne rencontre l'autre et le dit et l'appelle umuvandimwe. Et ce umuvandimwe n'est pas seulement national, ça s'étend à l'univers entier. Chaque fois que je rencontre une autre personne, je dis umuvandimwe. Par exemple, en Amérique, je pourrais dire umuvandimwe.
So that from the same wombness can extend, it can also be read as a political project in the sense that whoever it starts, it presupposes a certain sharedness, in this case, I guess, a familyness, but it's extended also to anyone else around who I can call a fellow muvandimwe.
Ce qui est intéressant encore, c'est que muvandimwe, ça naît en famille. Et en famille, la famille, c'est le père, la mère, les sœurs, les frères. Et dans cette écriture, chaque membre de la famille, c'est aussi un symbole. Le père est le symbole. La mère est le symbole. Les frères est le symbole. De telle sorte que chaque fois que je rencontre une grande femme, je l'appelle aussi maman ou ma mère. Une grande fille, c'est ma sœur. Un garçon, c'est frère. En fait, le muvandimwe, c'est aussi un univers symbolique, de telle sorte que ça n'est en famille, mais ça s'étend à tout le monde, de telle sorte que lorsque c'est dans ma tête, chaque fois que je rencontre un garçon, une fille, je l'appelle muvandimwe, ma sœur, ou mon frère, ou ma mère, ou mon père. Donc c'est un univers symbolique. Can you translate?
So ubuvandimwe is, of course, it's a symbolic term in the sense that the familial figures are equally can be extended outside of one's own family. So you could call a person a sister, a brother, a mother, without necessarily those person being actually the brothers or sisters or mothers, and so on. So it is also a symbolic structure of addressing what would otherwise be a difference that then becomes it creates a new relationship towards what would otherwise be differences.
J'allais ajouter que ce concept de Vendémiaire peut être aussi une ouverture à une construction d'une société beaucoup plus large, de telle sorte que toute une nation, tous les individus composant cette nation se voient dans ce symbolisme de Vendémiaire. Donc, Vendémiaire, ça n'est en famille, mais ça peut aller aussi fonder les sociétés modernes, la politique, l'économie, le social, etc., etc., etc.
It's from that perspective that this term, Ovandimge, can constitute a political project that is far wider than just its mere significance. And so that's how it can indeed enlarge that's how it can enlarge a political constitution. Is there more time for questions, or have we exhausted our minutes?
Any other questions?
Do you have any more questions? You have another question, Sora?
We can take one more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, thanks for being here. I just want to know, there's two separate questions on violence in language. Is there any other way that we could think of the thing in the world outside the language? And another question is, what is your view about metaphysics?
I think the first question was addressed to me. First I will translate. So, il demande s'il y a moyen. Je parlais de la violence. On parlait de la violence qui existe dans les langues, dans le langage. Est-ce qu'il y a moyen de penser être en dehors de langage? Ça, c'est la question. Et une question pour vous, c'est comment penser les métaphysiques? Oui. I'm not entirely sure, but there is a certain literature that suggests that you cannot, that there are very few means to be outside of language. This is because, again, as I would describe it following others, it's a parasite of a trans-social organism, and that inscribes itself, and in fact it's found where you least expect it as well. I believe I relate to that, again, in part, partially, sometimes in movement. And one way to lessen its grip or its totality is to cheat it. It's, you can lie. You can declare yourself, you can call yourself a different name than you actually are. There are ways of possibly fictionalizing. That's another way that to extent has been performed in this evening as well. So whereby there is for example, the person who appeared as a journalist, in fact, she's performing comedy. She's saying, I am this, I wish that, I want to become old. But in fact, it could be very well that she is declaring the opposite. So there are ways of developing a pedagogy of the unsayable, in fact, as a way of being outside of language. And the object is not to be theoretical about it. I believe that there are ways of actually practicing, and I think some of the aspects of this evening attend to that qualification of not so much outsideness, but diversion or reconstitution of whatever totality and meaning might have. These can be ways of lessening the grip or the limits of the intransigence of language. But I'm not trying to say that language is only violent. No, I'm saying that, in fact, there are so many beautiful words that I only want to think about them, but I'm forced to say hello instead and to make sense of, to read the signs. So it's not just because it's, I don't think it's an evil structure, but I think there are ways of inhabiting it that can be against the subject, and sometimes there are ways of qualifying the subject. Sometimes it's dehumanizing, some other ways it's extremely affirmative. So I wouldn't like to be recorded as saying that I'm somehow declaring language as necessarily a violent structure, but I think there are ways of inhabiting its use that can indeed come across and, in fact, do more harm than good. And so I hope I'm making sense and attending to your question. And then, the last question was about metaphysics. And I wonder if there is time for it and a need, but c'est à vous.
Mais en fait, la métaphysique, on dit que ce sont les philosophes qui sont métaphysiciens, mais tout le monde est métaphysicien. Je ne sais pas les sciences que vous faites, mais à un certain niveau, la métaphysique, c'est quoi? C'est à un certain niveau, n'importe quelle science que vous faites la physique, la mathématique, l'anthropologie, l'art, c'est de la métaphysique. L'art, c'est la métaphysique. En fait, chaque fois qu'on arrive à des concepts abstraits, à des unités abstraites, lorsque les physiciens parlent de l'énergie, mais c'est tellement abstrait. Lorsque les biologistes arrivent à l'ADN, c'est tellement abstrait. Donc la métaphysique est un peu partout, au moins jusqu'à là, en économie, en politique, en art.
So, in fact, metaphysics is everywhere. I don't know what you do, but you find it in anthropology, in biology, in physics. When you speak of energy, it's hard to understand other than an abstraction that, of course, is a metaphysical act. So, in other words, everywhere where is the form of abstraction that enters metaphysics.
Et après, la métaphysique, sur le plan technique, c'est une capacité de comprendre et de regarder loin, de voir loin. Peut-être je vais dessiner, après tu vas expliquer. D'accord, tu m'apprends ça?
So metaphysics, in technical terms, is simply a method of looking ahead, looking far. So he's going to draw, and then I will describe it.
Donc, tu vas expliquer si je suis à ce niveau-ci.
So,
horizontalement. Je ne veux pas voir trop loin. Mais la métaphysique, c'est être capable d'aller ici. Si vous allez voir partout là et ici. Avec c'est être élevé, aller au-delà.
So it's a way of enlarging the horizon vertically. Yeah.